Hi again, welcome to the Hawkeye Huddle Extra. I'm Brett Ridge, this is Dave Creighton Jr., and we join you each week on the Hawkeye Huddle on AM 940 out of Des Moines and around the world on the HawkeyeHuddle.com. You can check us out there live streaming or get our podcast, and of course, you can check out our Hawkeye Huddle Extras, all powered by Iowa Telecom. And David, real quickly, today we're talking about the suspensions to two Iowa wide receivers.
Very disappointing development. Dominic Douglas and Anthony Bowman both arrested over the weekend for using credit cards to buy themselves and perhaps some of their friends luxurious gifts and prizes, much like Wheel of Fortune.
Well, so where do we go from here? You know, you've lost to Bowman, who did not catch a pass last year, so maybe not such a big deal. But Douglas, the freshman receiver of the year, you know, as far as wide receivers around the country, the most yardage, and now you're not going to have him.
He was first-team All-American as a freshman, first-team freshman All-American, I should say. Clearly one of the top two receivers coming back for the Hawks.
Who steps up?
DJK steps up, Trey Strauss gets an opportunity to step up, and James Cleveland, I think, are three guys that all have the opportunity. Now, here's the issue. Between the three of them, I think they've caught 5 passes.
Well, and James Cleveland out last year, he went ahead and took a redshirt year, even though he was in school for a semester before that. Very talented and very tall, but this will be his first year. Daryl Johnson-Coulianos, who you said was DJK, very athletic, but other than the spring game, haven't seen much of him. And then you go back to Trey Strauss, who was off and on last year. Might even work your way down to a Colin Sandeman, who is a freshman wide receiver this year out of Bettendorf.
Or maybe even Ben Evans, a walk-on from Iowa City. I mean, that could be depending upon how this thing goes, as depleted as you might get.
Yeah, you never know how depleted you might get, how many players may be involved in this later on. All right, the offensive line, a concern this week at the open practice that they had at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City. It didn't look very good. The defensive line was overwhelming, and the offensive line was suspect to say the least. But part of the problem is you're missing Dace Richardson, who's still out with a knee injury, and Alex Kanellis, who was going to back him up, has head injuries. And now all of a sudden you're starting to wonder who is going to be that top 5.
Well, you have to look at it from there's two perspectives. One is you've got a defensive line that his comeback is completely solid with that core of Madison, Krug, King, and Webema, who are obviously, they know what's coming at them. They know the players. Now, the other side of that is you've got Eubanks, Seth Olson, and Kempel, who have solidified, I think, their spots on the line. You've got Julian Vandevelde trying to work in as a redshirt freshman.
A gray shirt, technically, yes.
And you've got the hole that Dace Richardson's left. Maybe a Dan Doring steps up. Who knows? I mean, Big Wes Eichelman. There's certainly opportunity there. The question I think that needs to happen is the Hawks need to decide on who those 5 are going to be. Practice with them, allow them to mesh as a unit.
Well, they're certainly not picking it up as quickly as Coach Ferentz would like, and he said he's going to tinker with that lineup until he gets it right, but you got a week and a half basically left until that happens. We'll see what goes on. All right, last thing, predictions for the year. This will be our last Hawkeye Huddle Extra before we hit the season. What do you think?
Well, I think right now as you continue to look at the schedule and with the wide receiver thing notwithstanding, I don't see the Hawks losing any non-conference games. Losing at Wisconsin, I think, is a definite. I don't want to say a definite, but they're going to be a heavy underdog in that game. I think they're going to lose either at Penn State or at Purdue. And the rest of the games are at home, and I think they're going to win them all.
I think you definitely have 3 losses on the schedule. I think you've beaten Penn State 5 times in a row now. It's going to be a tough, tall order to go in there in front of 110,000 people, or however many they get in there now.
Plus the roar.
Plus the roar. And it'll be tough to get a 6 straight over them. Wisconsin, probably one of the top 10 teams in the country. You're starting out the Big Ten season. That's a tough time to start that. If you had Wisconsin at the end of the year like you might have in the past, that might have helped. Purdue, people forget, Purdue went 8-4 last year. It happened to be one of your 2 Big Ten victories, but they were 8-4 last year, and they have 18 starters returning. I think there's 3 losses there on the schedule. The Hawks go 9-3. They're going to win a bunch that they should because there's not a lot of other strength on the schedule. And by the end of the year, the Northwestern road game, Western Michigan, Minnesota home, you're going to start to see them gel as a team. And I think maybe pull together because of this wide receiver problem as well.
Well, certainly they're going to have the opportunity to do that. And if the Hawks can go 3-1 in September, they can go 3-1, or worst case, or actually 3-2. There's 5 games in October.
In October, and then you get a couple
and
more.
Then you win the last 4 in November. I mean, that's kind of the way it goes. And so, really, the big key games, obviously, for automatic losses, if you will, or games are going to be underdogs, I would say, at Wisconsin, at Penn State, and Purdue. The rest of the games, the Hawks are going to be favored in every one of them, and so they have to live up to their potential that they have. That's at the end of the year. At the end of the year, in the end of the day, that's what we're going to end up being.
9-3 still gets you probably 5-3 in the Big Ten, and that's maybe New Year's Day Bowl, maybe Alamo or champs again. but we'll see where it goes from here. That's our thoughts on it. Join us again for the Hawkeye Huddle on AM 940 in Des Moines, streaming live on the HawkeyeHuddle.com, or pick up our podcast powered by Iowa Telecom.